Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight, the Thursday night edition. My name is Dave Scott. A busy show for you as Varla Ventura is back with our Crypted World. And yes, oh, we're frozen there. Why are we frozen on YouTube? Let's try this. We're having some technical issues here on my end. The signal is quite weak tonight. Oh well, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go. Turn your if you got your iPad on in here, turn it off the Wi-Fi. All right, we'll try that out, see if that works to speed things up a little bit. We are working on it. We are having a windstorm right now, so that might be part of the issue with the internet here. It's not a good windstorm at all, but we're going to try and trounce on through as we got SJ in the gold medal position, Race Fan with a silver, Tim Mothman and his goatee with a bronze medal tonight. And who else do we have here? We have Robert Lamoth, Kitty Cattywhack, Brown Dwarf, Resonate, Aaron Baca is here. Aaron Baca is signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Simon the Likeable, thank you for coming on in. Good to have you here. Eternity Eternal, Randy Spurl, Christine Lynn, Erico Dion Viglione. Good to have you here. As we continue on with our roll call, hi, Matt Carter. Major Lee, what's happening? Mel WD40 is here, lubing us up for tonight's show because we always want to go into a show nice and smooth. We don't want any rigidness whatsoever. Yes, I am aware of the YouTube signal, so we don't need to have a bunch of people say, your signal sucks tonight. Yes, we know. T-Bone, my man, how are you? Thanks for coming on in. Tim Mothman and his goatee, Ginger Turtle. And who else is next on our list? Gory Tiger, thank you for joining us. Operation Shutdown. Gong Show, Ozzy, Necessary Dialogue is back. Necessary Dialogue will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Hi, Scott B. How you doing? And who's next on our list? Pam Harris, as well as Richard Minnick. Al Garay over on Twitch. 750 pull-ups in 2 minutes because he wants to be pumped up for Varla Ventura tonight. Lee the Bee, how you doing? And purple-haired Pixie Lara, thank you for coming on in. And Jessica S. Rachel Lee, how are you? Hillbilly Herb, nice to see you. And Richard Minnick, thank you for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you very, very much for the love. Moving on, Abbott Hoffman, Woo Poo, nice to see you. And who's next on our list? Scroll on down, and we are caught up for right now. Once again, yes, I do know our signal is not doing very well tonight on camera. Audio is good, so we're good to go. As far as I'm concerned, we are good to go on everything. Let's get the radio side started. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and Varla Ventura is here for another edition of our Crypted World. Thank you for joining us. We are in roll call, hanging on out with the listeners. Remember that the super chat is open. You can be like Richard. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So we're always very appreciative. And a big thank you as well to everybody who's new. Hit subscribe, rang that bell. Don't forget you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out, as we got good stuff there. Paramarv, how you doing? Kevin Kennedy, thanks for coming on in. And yes, we know the video is a little blocky right now. Al Gray over on Twitch. Mel WD40, thank you for that lovely lubed up super chat. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you. 10 seconds, everybody. Do me a favor. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out, Bubblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charity. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show for you tonight as we get into monsters, legends. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight on the show for our Crypted World as well. In hour number 3, it's going to be a busy one. We got Swamp Dweller. We're going to try and get Robin Haynes in, but she is in the line of the hurricane that's going on down south. So we're not sure we're going to get her. If she can't do it, I'll hop in because that's what I do. It's Dave 101 night and the weird, strange news of the week. Varla Ventura is an accomplished author, published in every major bookstore when it comes to legends, monsters, and everything that goes bump in the night. Her website, varlaventura.net. We bring Varla on once a month because we talk a lot of monsters around here, usually Bigfoot, usually Dogman, but we never get into the darker side, the more sinister side of the monsters that allegedly walk among us. This is why we bring her on, because the conversation can go anywhere. We never script it. We don't even know what we're talking about. She messages me before every show and says, Dave, what are we talking about tonight? And I give her the same answer each and every time. Let's just wing it. See where it goes. Brother Ventura, always a pleasure to have you here. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. We are winging it delightfully so. Hello. Thanks for having me.
I'm always happy to have you here. What's new? How's hockey season?
Hockey season is ramping up. We're in the midst of tryouts. Hockey season kind of didn't end here, but we're getting into the real hockey season, not just summer hockey. So, it's ramping up. We're, just trying to get enough sleep and all of that good stuff that you need. And
you get 5 a.m. practices now? See, at that
no,
age?
when at this age, you tend to get the later practices. You tend to get the 8 at night, 9 at night practices. And they, give the little kids the ones a little bit closer to after school. So it's more late nights, which is fine. But really we don't even have a team yet. We're like figuring that all out. So it's not stressful at all.
How much do you love being a hockey mom?
I mean, it's a very unexpected thing for me. I didn't grow up. This will come as a shock to you, but I didn't grow up with hockey at all. So it was very, very unfamiliar to me. So the first 4 years or so, I was pretty lost. Really did not have any idea. Now I'm now I'm muttering under my breath at every call. So I feel like I've kind of gotten the hang of it. But my focus is always usually on what's happening in front of the net, and I don't, in front of our net. So,
well, you know what? I'm just trying to make sure that my son understands that swearing is only for the ice. It is that.
I mean, that's a rule.
It's funny because during hockey season, I'll have my friends over and they'll accidentally swear or curse in front of my boy.
Yeah.
And the first thing I say to them, they're like, oh, sorry. I didn't mean to curse in front of your son. I said, my son plays hockey. We're not a soccer family here where we have to be all frigid about having a curse word around him. He plays hockey, man.
Well, I'm good when I'm on the radio for FCC purposes, but yeah, I probably swear more than my child for sure. I'll tell you one funny little thing though that happened. I might have told you this already, but a kid was down in front of the net, and I was watching my son, and what is he doing? And the kid had kind of gotten in the crease and it kind of fallen in front of him, and he pushed on the kid. He's kind of pushing down on the kid's helmet, and the puck had moved on, the play had already been called, whatever. And I asked him about it after, and he said, "Oh, I just needed a little help up. I was just holding the kid down. I just need a little help up."
Nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that. So yeah, but this is the year here, at least, where they can legally check. So that's a new thing. I mean, it doesn't affect the goalies so much, but it certainly affects the players. So that's all I gotta say is all the parents who have said to me over the years, how can you be a goal? Isn't that so nerve-wracking? Just those pucks flying at your kid. And all I can say is it's looking pretty good from where I'm sitting. If your kids are about to start getting checked into the boards, a flying puck is nothing.
Not me, man. Not me. I would sooner have my son crunching people into the boards, open ice hits, maybe punch a guy in the head every now and again, instead of having a hard rubber disc fired at him 60 times a game.
Yeah. Well,
you got the crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, this is the only version of hockey that I know. So I've embraced it fully.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Varla, you are one of the most accomplished authors in our field of cryptid research and legends and folklore. It's something that you love to do. It is something you love to write about. And every time we bring you on, there's always some weird, strange creature that you bring to our attention. Now, you've covered many times on this show mermaids and changelings and everything from ghosts to Bigfoot and Dogman. If you reached into your bag of monsters that you carry in your purse,
or my book,
is there any monster out there that you don't think gets enough recognition?
Well, I mean, I've probably said this before, but I really feel like banshees don't get enough attention. I think that's a pretty terrifying creature, partly because they are harbingers of death. And for anyone who's not familiar with the banshee, it's essentially, technically the word translates to of the fairy mound or fairy woman, and in Irish. And the it usually appears in a female form or a feminine form, can appear sort of like floating or floating head, or you can just hear the call. And the call is like this, like very mournful sort of keening, this very mournful cry. And generally when you hear the banshee, you know that someone's going to die. And that's why the banshee appears. The banshees themselves aren't there to cause death. They're sort of just, kind of letting you know. It's a little heads up. And they're very feared for that reason. So I feel like banshees don't get, we hear a lot about vampires, which are, vampires are cool. But banshees, they're surprisingly creepy, and there's all kinds of strange stories about them sort of shape-shifting. And one of the scarier ones is in, I believe it's in a collection by Elliot O'Donnell, who was an Irish writer who lived kind of I think he was born in the late 1800s and wrote a lot of his books at the earlier part of the 20th century. And he was a very interesting writer because a lot of writers at the time, just as today, or researchers he wasn't really an experiencer, or they weren't really experiencers so much. They were like reporting on folklore or customs. And Elliot O'Donnell had a number of paranormal experiences as a child, and kind of grew up in like this haunted flat part of his childhood. So when he was out there collecting stories and talking to people, he was coming from a sort of a different viewpoint. And it comes across, to me, I noticed the difference. It comes across in his work. It's less condescending, it's less cynical, and it's very rich with detail. So anyway, he wrote quite a bit about the Irish banshee in particular. And he has a number of stories, but one of what I think is the scarier story, there's always the like sort of beautiful woman that then transforms or kind of tricks you into like starting a conversation, and then she transforms and starts screaming like a banshee. Yes, we're not talking about at the bar. We're talking about on a open road somewhere in the moors. But there's this pretty scary one about this, like it's middle of the day, and a man is walking in one direction, and he sees a little old lady walking toward him, and she's sort of, hobbling, looks like she's carrying like sort of a heavy package or basket, along with her, kind of hauling it along. And he stops to sort of offer her some help. And she sort of like looks up at him, and then her face like completely shifts into this like hollowed eyed, like terrifying thing. And she starts to scream, and, the poor man is just sort of left on the side of the road shaking. That's pretty scary. You're just it's like helping someone across the street, and then they just suddenly transform, shapeshift in front of you, and look like death itself. Sounds scary.
How is a banshee created?
So it's not really created. It's something that exists. It's sort of one of those immortal creatures that comes from the fairy, from the fairy realm. From which, just to be clear, like when I'm talking about the fairy realm, I'm kind of talking about the other world. The world of the fae, especially in like Celtic mythology, is this like coexisting but flip side place. So it's not just like, oh, we're sitting in the garden and there's Tinkerbells all around us. It's not like that at all. There's all kinds of creatures that dwell in that world and occasionally reveal themselves to us. But many people do believe that the banshee or counterparts to the banshee, such as the washerwoman, are women, or the spirits of women who are in purgatory because they either died in childbirth, or they harmed their children in some way, or there's like several legends behind that. And generally that's, kind of why there's this like mournful cry. They're like searching for their lost child, or they died in childbirth, but they don't realize. There's some stories like about the origins of banshees being that. And in particular, like in the Highlands of Scotland, there's the washerwoman, who is kind of similar to a banshee, sometimes called a banshee also, but is often seen sort of at the side of a creek and looks like a a woman sort of washing out rags, and it said that if you look at her and you see blood like running from the rags, that's an indication that you may die in battle. So again, just the messenger, for these somewhat sad and gruesome future events.
Well, banshees, sirens, sea hags, mermaids, they're all there to take down men. It's sexist, I tell you. It's totally sexist.
I actually think that a lot of the folkloric record is sexist in and of itself. I think that you always have like the moral of the story. There's a lot of imposition of interesting morals starting in like the 16th century when a lot of women's rights, especially like Breton law, which was the existing law in Ireland, for example, when English rule was trying to take away Breton law, which actually gave women a lot of rights. That's when a lot of the stories, that's when a lot of the stories started evolving. A lot of the fairy tales and folklore kind of evolved to show women in a always trying to tempt you, always out to get you, ready to drown you, all that kind of stuff. Which, hey, I'm not arguing. Not arguing against that, but I do think that there's like a slant there that kind of there's some bias that the scariest ones are feminine in form, especially when you have like reverends, right? Like you have men of the cloth who are the ones writing these stories down. Of course, like women are going to be the like witchy temptress at all times, or the like soul-sucking vampire or whatever.
The succubuses are real.
Yeah.
They are real. Let me tell you, what would cause a banshee to be seen? And are they still running around in today's society?
Yeah. So usually a banshee is seen because someone is gravely ill, or like on death's door. Once upon a time, banshees were attached to specific families, specific clans in Ireland in particular. And technically, the reason I keep referring to Ireland is because technically a banshee is of Irish origin. There are counterparts to the banshee that play similar roles in a way, but a true banshee comes from Ireland, from Irish literature and folklore. And I think so. Usually, someone would be ill already, and you would, you're hoping they were going to make a recovery. They had consumption or whatever, and then you're hoping they were going to make a recovery. And then you hear this mournful cry, and you know that death is nigh. So, I think once upon a time, banshees were attached to families, and not everyone. So they were either attached. This I don't know. This I've pondered. Were they attached to families, or did certain people in the family inherit the ability to see them, inherit that second sight that allows you to see? Because not everybody has it, right? Like everybody has different gifts, and not everybody can essentially see ghosts, right? Banshees kind of are somewhere between like a ghost and a supernatural creature, a fairy creature or something. So I think you have it's probably imminent death. Then you also have like certain people who can see these banshees. And so that's kind of like how they were seen or experienced, back in the day. As those like 6 original clans sort of like, things shifted and changed, more people would have these encounters. And in fact, Elliot O'Donnell writes about like this sort of like rash of banshees, and there was an O'Donnell banshee actually, which he never saw, but members of his family had told stories about it. So today, yes, I do believe that there are a number of banshee sightings. I have a friend who we have come to believe that is what he witnessed. The thing about the banshee is it's very unexpected. And then modern medicine, someone might not be as on death's door, or you might not know about it. So I think there can be some delay of time. I also believe that they can tell you that death is nigh, but now we have modern medicine, so we can maybe intervene. But I have actually had numerous people contact me over the years telling me, and I'd be curious if anyone listening, anyone in the chat or anything, if they've had any kind of experience with a banshee, meaning seeing some kind of, it would not be like the ghost of a familiar person. It's not like seeing the ghost of your grandfather the night he dies. That's not a banshee. That's something else. A banshee would be, usually it's female. It often can look beautiful and then sort of shift into something terrifying. I have heard accounts of it just being a floating head, like a terrifying floating head. Some people only hear it, some people only see it, and some people see and hear it at the same time. So over the years, especially when I started working on one of the books that I included Banshees in, I had a number of people contacting me saying, well, I had this, and I'm thinking now that by the way you've described it, that this was a banshee encounter, including a couple of friends of mine. In fact, one friend that we are convinced that that's actually what he heard all these years later. But sometimes you don't know, because it could be like a month or so before someone falls ill or they pass away. So. So I believe people are still seeing banshees today. I think that, they may, again, do they follow people, or is it just the ability, that second sight to witness them? So, and then there are, as I mentioned, there are counterparts to the banshee all over the world. So La Llorona is a little bit of a banshee type creature, sort of a female spirit that haunts highways and darkened roads in Mexico, thought to be a woman who died in childbirth or is in purgatorial mourning. There's there's a legend of a white woman in a castle in Italy. Where she just is this particular castle. Whenever someone saw this white ghost, it meant that someone in the family died within a couple of days. Usually it wasn't the person who saw the ghost. It was usually, it'd be like the king finally dies or whatever. So there's all kinds of counterparts around the world that kind of serve as these warning ghosts to warn you of death. But again, they wouldn't be a familiar, it's not like they don't appear like a family member, right? It's not like the ghost of so-and-so comes to you and, ghost of Aunt Hilda comes and tells you little Johnny's sick. It's more a very, it looks like a very much a supernatural creature. I personally have not ever seen a banshee, but I do, I'm not entirely sure if what I heard was a banshee, but I did hear something one night when I was a teenager. I know could have been anything, but one night when I was a teenager, and then a family friend died a couple days later. So I don't know if that's what it was, but it took me 20 years to figure out that might have been the case, and kind of put those things together. So, yeah.
Well, from banshees to other weird cryptids that we'll get into in the next half hour, I look forward to having that conversation with you. I know our audience will too, because we love our Varla Ventura around here. We do. And you know what? You can find all of Varla's books at any major bookstore or online at varlaventura.net. Maybe we should let the audience pick the next topic we talk about. If you're in our YouTube chat, what monster do you want to hear from? I know what I want to get into. I want to get into tulpas next on Spaced Out Radio. Varla Ventura is our guest. varlaventura.net is her website. Once again, we'll be right back right after this. All right, we're clear. Mm-hmm. Brown Dwarfy, how you doing, man? Hey, blob alert. We have a blob alert.
Oh, blob.
I can't believe Filthy just
blob out of the way.
blob alert right there.
She was knocking over my stuff. I got a little mess now.
You're wrong then.
I rearranged the studio and I made a little cat fortress for the cats to hang out on.
You know how important it is for us to have blob time.
Blobby McBlobberson.
Here, Blob. Remove you from your comfortable spot. There, all hail the Blob.
Oh, blob.
There she is. There's the blob. Mm-hmm.
There's a blob butt for you. Hello, Blob. Yep, she's out of control, Dave.
Love the blob.
She doesn't know if she wants to jump down or what. What are you doing, Blob? Alrighty.
There she goes.
Rearrange that.
Lobster.
There she
Oh, Blob, everybody loves you.
Blobenstein.
Yeah, Blobenstein, Mark.
There's
Yeah,
Blobber.
oh, there she goes.
She's getting comfortable on the legs there.
Yeah, pretty soon I won't feel my legs.
Well,
Worth it.
totally worth it.
So I'm drawing a cartoon about the goblin and the gnome. And they beat up Sasquatch so bad at the arcade machine that he cries and goes running home and leaves his change there, and they decide to spend all his change.
Aw. Poor Sasquatch. The
Yeah,
big
that's
oaf.
what happens when he deals with those little tricksters.
The big oaf.
Make sure you keep blob out of Ohio.
Oh, jeez.
What? I don't get that joke. What's that joke? What does that
Oh,
mean?
there's this story going around that people are eating cats in Ohio.
Oh, the stupid, JD Vance and stupid Trump's ridiculous comments of complete ignorance.
Someone should say, like, there's
I
dog
thought
men
we were
eating
over
people.
that. I thought we had moved.
I
past
thought
that.
it was a funny time to bring it up.
Uh,
I thought it was funny. That's me.
Ow. I'm being clawed to death.
well,
Oh, Blob.
You deserve it, Phil.
I know.
It is.
It's actually warm out here today, Dave. I don't get many of those left anymore.
We've been having a windstorm all day. Zenzabil, how you doing? Driftwood, how you doing? Grilled cheese steak burrito at Taco Bell. Oh,
I know you love.
big thank you tonight to
Taco Bell.
T-Bone, my man, Mel WD40 and Richard Minnick for the super chats. We greatly appreciate everybody's support and love. If you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell. Remember, the chat room is apolitical. Apolitical. We can make fun of no one except Justin Trudeau, dear leader. That's the only one you can make fun of in our chat room. I've declared that as law in Daveland. And don't call him by his name. Call him dear leader, because that's the way he wants people to recognize him. Philip Miller, how you doing? And I think we got about 30 seconds left. Yeah. 30 seconds. Dirty, you're filthy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I say that out of
Oh,
love.
Blob.
Look at
Those
Blob. We're getting
tweets.
Blob time here now.
Yeah. She's like actively participating.
All right, here we go, everybody. We're coming back in 3 seconds. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in for the oddities of life that we call Spaced Out Radio. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. VarlaVentura.net is our guest website as Varla Ventura comes in for Our Cryptid World, where she tags along with us, telling us all about spooky, crazy stories. Now, the audience wasn't too imaginative for this, but I am going to ask you right off the bat, Varla, tulpas. We have a lot of creatures out there who are created by people because we put our energy into them. And I believe the energy can be sucked up like a vacuum by whatever the phenomena is. And the phenomena says, yeah, we can make that. We could create that. What's your thoughts on tulpas?
Well, I kind of feel like there's varying degrees of tulpas. I think there's, or maybe the word is sort of like used in various ways. But to me, at its core, a tulpa is really a manifestation, right? It's a manifestation, whether it's deliberate or sort of inadvertent. It's a manifestation usually of some kind of something that manifests physically or, in some form that is visible from another through like whatever, through like a ceremony or a ritual. Madame Blavatsky, who was the founder of the Theosophical Society, she studied a lot of, it comes from like Eastern Buddhism. And she studied a lot of that. And she was also kind of into spiritualism. And that was around the time, it was the turn of the 20th century when people were experimenting with contacting things from the other side. And there would be this process of trying to invoke something divine, or I think maybe the intention might have been divine, or maybe the intention was foolish. And you would sort of like conjure something up. To me, it's hope, but at the same time, there's also the idea of the collective consciousness manifesting things, right? So I think we've probably all experienced one of those times in our lives where maybe the word you've never heard someone use in a sentence before, someone uses it, I've never heard someone use that word before. And literally you'll hear it on the radio like 2 hours later, or someone else will use it. I think that's kind of like a snippet of the power of the collective consciousness. And we know, there's I think his last name was Morimoto. There was that man who took water molecules and he put them in a room and he photographed them. And then he had everybody think like really negative thoughts. And then he examined the water molecules and they had changed. And then he put them in the room and everybody had really positive, everyone threw positive thoughts at the water molecules and they changed in a different way. So this is all just using the mind. So I don't know really, how we would know for sure if something is a tulpa or if it's something that's been here all along and we just let it through a portal. I mean, there's certainly the idea of sort of invoking things that I don't know. There's some internet phenomena that aren't actual cryptids that have, like I think we've talked about, like Slender Man, for example, isn't really like a real. It's not really like a real thing, but there's elements of it that people have witnessed outside of the, um, TikTok girls. There's people have seen very strange,
Yes.
tall creatures and entities and things like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, when you think of a tulpa, do you think of it as like something that is
Well,
manifested on purpose through collective consciousness, or sort of
I will
through
give you an example. I will give you an example from my local museum, and I got my head chewed off the other night by one of the museum people during our ghost tour. And it's over this lady named Agnes McVie. Now,
Love
history
that name.
history is this. Agnes McVie allegedly came from Scotland. He made her way to New Westminster, British Columbia, after allegedly killing 2 people in her homeland, including her ex-husband. She then allegedly made her way up north. This is in the 1800s. Made her way up north to a city called Kamloops. That's where the trail dies. We know she was a real person, but legend has it, in my area where the museum is, she ran a post house on the Gold Rush Trail.
Mm.
And when the men were coming back from the Gold Rush Trail, coming down with their riches, she would provide stability for their horses. She would have her prostitutes give them a little bit of loving. She would get the men drunk. And when they passed out or were so intoxicated they didn't know what was going on, she would kill them and steal their gold. And she would then throw the bodies in our local lake, as well as bury them around in the forests. Allegedly, she killed 62 people, maybe more.
Wow.
So we fast forward to when this area was developed for housing. It was developed as a cottage area for rich people who lived in Vancouver and North Vancouver. And one of the people who built this area or helped build this area figured the town, in order to attract people, needed a legend. So they came up with the legend of Agnes McVie. However, that's where I'm not sure where it's going on. But many people who have walked the grounds of the museum claim to now have had interaction with said Agnes McVie. Now, she is a tourism attractant. I think because most people, we don't know if she was legally or ever in this area. There is no written log of her being up here.
Okay.
However, could she have been? Yes. Most likely, she is a tulpa because everybody believed in the legend, and the legend has grown and morphed into this battle axe, vicious woman who would steal your gold.
Yeah.
Have no problem killing you over it.
So then the question still remains, the people that think they're interacting with her, what are they interacting with? Are they interacting with nothing and they are just think that they are, or are they interacting with something that is just an opportunistic entity? Because there's plenty of those, right?
Well,
yeah. So I think, yes, I think they're it's always difficult to discern because we're in the field of the invisible, right? We're in the field of the supernatural. We're in the field of the things that go bump in the night and you see out of the corner of your eye. So it's very hard to ever like have quantifiable proof, right? And I absolutely do think that just like with any group or group mindset, there are people that will experience things to become part of that group, right? That's just how humans work. So, I mean, essentially what you're saying is that this legend, which was just a legend, enough people believed it, so it in a way became real, right? So that you can't actually discern the reality from. I mean, all legends have some element of that, right? They have some kind of like extreme. Everybody retells the story a little bit differently. But what you're talking about is enough people believing in something that it kind of took on some sort of, I guess, physical form, right? If people are having some kind of like physical reaction, but at the same time, it could be something else that's there. It could be, I mean, it's a, old museum full of old stuff and a old weird, like along the gold rush, all kinds of horrible things happened during the gold rush, unspeakable things that there are no records of because, I mean, come on, Donner Party. That's my neck of the woods. I grew up very close to where the Donner Party had their picnic. Picnic at Donner Pass.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, whether it's Agnes McPhee, whether it's Siren Head, whether it's Bloody Mary, whether it's,
Bloody Mary's a really good example. That's a really good example of a tulpa, like the party trick, the, pajama party, stay up late, say it enough times into the mirror, trying to like manifest it. And that is actually the crux of like an entire genre of horror. So it's obviously something that like it kind of nags at people. And I think it can be very difficult to tell if somebody, I mean, I've just found over the years to just sort of like trust my instincts when someone's telling me something, whether I counter them or not. People frequently, especially in my first couple of books, I had people sending me stories and, whatever. I believe in mermaids. So who am I to like say, oh, well, what you experienced is not legitimate, So I realize that it sounds a little funny for me to say that I'm discerning, but really like you do kind of learn to like, especially when you spend enough time talking with people and being around people, you do kind of learn to, you get this instinct when something isn't entirely truthful, you consider your source. But then again, kind of back to tulpas, like somebody believing it can make it real to them. And that's an imaginary friend is essentially a tulpa, right? And then you hear these stories of imaginary friends and like your children who had imaginary friends. Did they have an imaginary friend? Or were they making contact with a ghost and they just called it what they wanted to call it because, I don't know. It's very interesting conversation. I think it's curious to try and draw those distinctions when we're basically dealing with like an entire field of unknown, which is part of the draw. If we knew everything, why would we be investigating it?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things, but it also shows the power of the human mind when many people bring that energy together to create something that has never existed.
Yeah. But see, I always wonder though, like your story is a really good example because I wonder, because at its root, if you look at how like what a tulpa is in like Tibetan Buddhism, it is like the power of the mind, but it is tapping into something that is a divine consciousness. So you're manifesting something out of that divine consciousness. So you're not just like making something up because you want to scare people on the internet, right? You're like actually accessing another sort of dimension or whatever, and you're pulling things back from that. In modern terms, yeah, you're like saying Bloody Mary a bunch of times, and you're trying to make that is she going to appear? But I think if you look at like the real roots of it, because it is a mind manifestation, you are talking about like, I think one of the real issues, Dave, is that we're not all like sitting in a room together, like collectively trying to manifest a particular thing, right? We're like disjointed all over the world doing our own thing, like occasionally watching one too many YouTube shorts and going down a rabbit hole and then manifesting things, right? So it's taken on a different meaning in modern times, what a tulpa is. But have you ever heard like the examples of like, okay, this is another kind of tulpa, right? This actually happened to me a couple times when I was in Hawaii. So the first time I pulled, I don't remember the card, but I was doing tarot with this friend of mine, and we pulled some cards, and we pulled one particular card. I think we pulled a card for me. I can't remember what her deck was, but I think it was the Dion Fortune deck, because I had brought that for her. And and in this card, there was this very specific image in the background of the card. Again, I'm sure I wrote it down at the time, but this was 20 years ago. We went out on her deck. We looked up at the moon, and of course, there's clouds. It's Hawaii, and the cloud formed the same thing that we saw in the card. So there's that idea too, right? We're like, it's kind of similar, like something's planted in your mind, like this tree image, and then you look and you see that somewhere. That's a little bit of like the power of suggestion, right? And that's you're getting into the whole field of mentalism. Speaking of mentalism, I think you had Joe Diamond on the other night, the world's greatest paranormal magician. Love him. But that whole field of mentalism is it kind of straddles that idea of being able to like mind over matter and sort of manipulate things. And I think we think it means like this thing's going to go floating in front of us, or we're going to raise something up and it's going to make the table float. But in reality, we're putting that concept into somebody else's mind, right? People wonder that. I've often wondered that about the Ouija board. Is it actually just the collective thoughts that are moving the planchette around, not physical movement, but sort of that there's a like power of suggestion element to that, where you don't even realize you're predicting what's gonna happen, but you are. Yeah.
Human mind. As we got about 5.5 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight. The human mind is a very powerful thing. I don't think the majority of us, myself included, can really understand how powerful it is for its creation of anything. And a lot of these stories that we do know have been brought forward by the over the last 10, 20 years of what we call creepypasta, which is nightmarish type stories that are out there. However, there have been experiments like the Philip experiment in the 70s about creating a tulpa, where these scientists went over time and literally created a human, not physically, but they gave it a name, they gave it a personality, they gave it a place of birth, a place of death, a career, a wife, children. They gave everything, called the Philip experiment. And this was done in Toronto. And within a few weeks of putting the energy in calling Philip in seances, eventually Philip started to answer. So
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
spirit is the spirit world connected to the human mind that we can pull things out of one another? Or is the phenomena just that, how can I put it, not sinister, but that trickster that it could say,
Manipulative. Uh-huh. Yeah.
manipulative, thank you, that it could say, okay, you want it, you're going to get it. Here we go.
Yeah, well, that's a million-dollar question, right? Because I do think that it's a little bit of both, right? There's things that you can dabble in if you're not prepared. The spirit world can certainly get the better of you. The unseen forces can certainly kind of outsmart humans and have time and time again, right? You open a portal, you decide you want to close it, and you don't know how to do it right, or you didn't do it soon enough. Absolutely. But I agree. Like, what, it's kind of like I was saying earlier, like, do you inherit the ability to see the Banshee, or do you actually inherit the Banshee? Because some people do have more, I think everyone can develop it, but some people are more in tune with that other world and can sort of use that to manifest things. I mean, that really is the million-dollar question, though. Like, are we accessing the spirit world, or is the spirit world accessing us? Like, whose terms is it really on? And I think if you look, for example, at the the fairy lexicon, that is 100% on their terms. That is not on our terms at all. We do things that some of us may be able to see or have interactions, but it's on their terms if they're going to like reveal themselves to us. Now, when it comes to the world of like, entities like the jinn or demonic entities, like it's kind of, it's a whole other thing. But I mean, there are all of these books that have been channeled. There's like the Seth writings, there's books that have been channeled through the Ouija, through mediumship, through trance, many. But then at the same time, like when you're describing like the Philip experiment, which I've read a little bit about, it's not unlike from like the writer's point of view, it's not unlike, I've had characters wake me up at night and get me out of bed and tell me what they want to say and kind of walk around behind me until I've gotten the message out. And you'll hear more than one writer say things like that. So you kind of create this whole sort of person or persona, and then they do become very real in many ways. So I don't really know, like, what is it, but I certainly think we can access the spirit world. But I think we are in less control of the entire situation than we think we are, which is why you're really not supposed to mess around with it, unless you know what you're doing. And even if you think you know what you're doing, you probably don't.
Well, I could tell you one thing. We're all messing around with it, even if we don't even know that we are. One way or another, we are all messing with the phenomena, and the phenomena must be having a joyous time with us humans right now.
Laughing.
Figure out everything that is going on. Varla, we got about 20 seconds left before we have to go to break at the bottom. Make that the top of the hour. My clock is reversed right now. So
Fair.
We'll go to the top of the hour with a break. VarlaVentura.net is her website because she wanted to be different and doesn't like the .com. She's anti.com. So she goes .net. VarlaVentura.net. You can find her books at any major bookstore across North America or online. I highly recommend them. She's one of the best. She's very eloquent, romantic, especially when it comes to the monsters that hang around us. This is Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott, and when we return with Varla, we're going to get more into the monsters that walk among us. Stay tuned.
Style Radio with host Dave Scott.
All right, we are clear. Cosmic
Let's-
Joe, thank you.
Let's see this filth. What's going on there?
I'm gonna zoom in on Filthy here.
Yeah, make him bigger.
There's Dave. Go for a smoke. Let the dog and Sasquatch man out.
Oh, look at that. And so
Oh, it's not quite done yet.
Is that a jar
have
of
it.
quarters for the cryptid combat?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the leftover Sasquatch quarters.
Nice. I love this.
Cat hair. Excuse me. There we go. A little bit closer.
Cute. I love that goblin guy.
Yeah, he's good.
Who's
Little
this
trickster
guy?
guys.
Who's the other guy though?
That's a little gnome.
Yeah.
They're both
so cute.
pretty short. In my comics,
In
they're always
the
playing tricks.
cryptid combat, is that what do we got?
We got-
We got like a Pooka or we have Mothman? in there?
Mothman and a reptilian.
Uh-huh, and a reptilian. Yeah, nice touch. Ooh, I like the crack on the wall behind the
You got to
thing.
get it
That's-
painted.
Yeah, that's great.
But I got to add one of these guys because I always do.
And the flies around the light. Oh, frayed cord.
Yeah? Oh, yeah, I have to have a spider.
Oh, spider. Oh, yeah, you gotta have a spider
It's
in
always,
there.
it's always hanging off of something.
It's a little bit creepy, in the right way. A little worn around the edges, this arcade.
It's part of the pub. It's in the back,
Yeah.
broken VLT machines just off to the side over there.
Yeah.
They got Sasquatch left his mug of beer and his peanuts.
Yeah, well, he just had to drop.
I would hang out here definitely.
Let's spend his quarters. So was there one prior to this with Sasquatch with the quarters?
No, it's part of an idea that I've got for a short comic.
Okay, cute. Yes, I love it.
There we go. Put that there. You can zoom in a little bit more. Oops. There we go. Yeah, you gotta have the moths around the lights as well.
Mm-hmm. Nice and grubby. A good grubby pub.
Yeah, just dirty enough that you don't ask if they have a proper, health certificate or anything.
Just dirty enough it's okay if you spill.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about getting the carpet dirty.
Yeah. You don't have to worry if you.
It's got that
knock something
horrible
over.
1970s acid trip carpet.
Yeah. It hides all stains. Blood stains.
It's the
beer
same carpet on the
stains,
drawing.
Wine stains.
Yeah, just don't put a black light to the place. Good gods.
Oh God.
It's the same
Yeah.
carpet that is in your comic or your cartoon that I drew.
Oh yeah. Like the
Vegas one.
Yeah, the Vegas one. Mm-hmm.
So I got like another minute here. So the first idea for the comic I'm working on is the three gray aliens, Carl, Stanton, and Alan. They're all hanging out, and they decide that they're going to try to take a picture of Sasquatch. So basically, they decide to wait till Sasquatch comes in. They got the cameras out. One guy's got a blurry picture. One guy's got a pixelated picture, and the other one's kind of a combination of both. And so the one alien goes, "Why don't we get one of those instant cameras?" Because can't say Polaroid. So they go, "Oh, great idea."
Oh, because it's
'Cause
a
there's-
brand name or whatever. You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they figure, okay, that should work. That'll, they're still trying to figure out human technology. So they go and get an instant camera, take a picture of Sasquatch who's sitting at the bar having a wobbly.
Love it.
And then when it prints out, they look at it and they go, well, what the hell? There's nothing on here. And they go, okay, well, plan's ruined. Let's pay the bill and leave. And they throw the picture away. And as they walk out of the pub, the last frame is the picture of the Sasquatch coming in clearly.
Because it's developing after they've ditched it. Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's a great storyline. I love it. Can't wait to see it.
I'll show some pictures once I get it all painted up.
Mm-hmm.
You are amazing.
Lovely.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Varla.
You are amazing. I miss you.
I'll have to go to some kind of spaced out radio party of some sort.
Something. We gotta figure something out.
We got a minute to go here. I want to say a quick thank you to Richard, Mel WD40, P-Bone, and Cosmic Joe for the super chats. Hello, gorgeous and amazing Kira. Hi, Troy SR71. How are you? Who else has joined us here? Well, let's take a quick look here while we're waiting.
Hi, Blob.
Thurston Howell III.
Lovenstein.
How you guys doing? Number 26 in your program, starting at left wing tonight from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. Deadfish, how you doing? All right.
Blob.
Gotta love the Blobbert.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Good night,
Dirty.
Filth.
All right, that's Dirty Filth, everybody. Filthy.com is his website. So make sure you check it on out. Questions for Varla, put them in capital letters. Here we go, everybody. Here we go with the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tulpas. Tulpas is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. My favorite time of the month. Varla Ventura is here for our Cryptid World. She will not be here next month because the final Thursday of the month is Halloween. And we'll be figuring out something to do that night. Don't know what yet, but we'll figure it out. So we'll be talking to Varla in November after this show. VarlaVentura.net is her website. You can find her books at any major bookstore or online on her website. Varla, welcome back.
Thank you. I saw someone put this in the chat earlier, and I have been very fascinated with the concept of doppelgangers. So I don't know if you want to talk about that for a few minutes, or if you wanted to swing into something else. Yeah. So doppelgangers. Have you ever? This is Varla Ventura speaking with Dave Scott. Have you ever encountered a doppelganger?
Yes. In a dream.
Okay.
I just told this story a couple nights ago when we had Dr. Lisa Thompson on.
Okay.
And I went to bed and I'm somebody who doesn't remember my dreams. But this one, it was like a nightmare. It was all black and white. And it was like old town Midwestern United States with the old brick buildings with the wide streets, you know, like the old downtowns used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was dropped off by a bus or something. And I needed a place to stay. And so it was pouring rain, and in between me and the main drag, there was this street lamp. And underneath this street lamp was a guy standing. So I ran over to him to say, hey, could you help me find a place to stay, or where there's a hotel or motel or whatever? And I realized that I was looking at myself.
Ooh, doppelganger of your own self.
Mm-hmm. And it was my evil self.
Ooh, flip side, Dave.
Yeah. And it was so realistic because the other me said to me, you shouldn't be here right now.
Yikes.
And then he says, if you weren't who you were, I would kill you right now.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
jeez.
And
That's
I don't quite
intense.
remember it all. Like
You remember that? That's pretty intense.
remember that. And I remember he was wearing all black, like a black leather jacket. The hair was dark because I
It's like
still had dark hair back then.
Dark Side Dave.
Yeah. And black t-shirt, black pants, black shoes, and the rain, pouring down over him. He didn't have an umbrella or anything. And it was eerie, man.
Oof. Yeah, that's freaky.
Absolutely eerie. But I've never ran into myself on this plane, though.
Yeah, yeah. I've never had a doppelganger of myself. I mean, yeah, I hope there's there's not two of me running around out there. God help the world if there is. But I have had I have sworn that I have seen someone and not just like in passing, but I have sworn that I have like my sister, for example, I've seen her multiple times in a town that she doesn't live in. And it happened to me a lot when I was younger, where I mean, you just dismiss it a lot because you just think, oh, well, I don't, I guess I didn't really see that person. But it's happened to me a few times, like, in my more adult life, where you can't quite put your finger on it, but you swear that you just saw that person and you talked to them and they said this thing to you, or you at least see them. I've only had like a couple encounters where I've said something to the person. Now I have interviewed a few people who have told me much more scary versions of doppelganger stuff, like where they talk to someone and it seems like the person, but it's not quite them. But sometimes it is someone talking to themselves, but at like a different age. I don't understand really what a doppelganger is at its heart, other than all I can think is it's like kind of there's a trickster element to it. Yeah, I haven't heard of too many people getting like warnings from their doppelganger, which you did. It's a strange, it's a strange concept. And we kind of say it jokingly sometimes, right? Like you run into someone and I saw you down at the market. I wasn't at the market. Oh, it must have been your doppelganger. We'll kind of make that as a joke, but I don't know. I think it can be unnerving, certainly, especially the other thing I've had that I don't know if this counts as doppelganger, but I've heard like many years ago, I swear to God, I heard my brother outside my window. I swear he was standing in the pavement. He said my name. It was about like 10 o'clock at night. And I swore it was him. I had the window cracked. And to the point where I got up and it kind of freaked me out because it was like, well, someone said my name, there's no one out there. There's nothing there. There's, then you kind of like, did I dream it? So I feel like voice, that could be something else too, it's like a voice throwing, or like, I don't know, maybe someone was thinking it and you hear it, or something we've talked about this, Dave, where like something takes on the sound of a voice of someone that you're familiar with, trying to kind of like, hey, I'm right over here kind of thing. Hey, come.
My friend, I've told you that story.
Yeah, like come into the woods with me.
That happened to my friend when he was hunting. He heard my voice.
Yeah, he heard you. That's right. Yeah, and he was like, there's no way you're here. This is so strange. Yes. So I don't know if that's doppelganger, or if that's just like creepy entity impersonation trying to lure someone. Like,
Now, I will say, and I remembered this just a couple of moments ago, I will say about 14, 15 years ago, my buddy and I were fishing on the river, and we saw this old guy walk up to us, and he said, "Hey, young guys, I haven't had any luck downriver. Do you mind if I fish by you guys?" And I turned and looked, and he was an absolute twin to my grandfather.
ooh.
Now, my grandfather died in 1995.
Hmm.
This would have been probably 2010, 2011. And I remember saying to him, absolutely, of course you can. So, we were showing him where the run was, where we were hooking and all this kind of stuff. And it was a great, great time. And finally, about an hour later, I finally had to go up to him. And I just said to him, I said, I have to tell you something. I said, you are a twin to my grandfather. And then my grandfather passed away in 1995, blah, blah, blah. And him and I were really, really close. I said, so I hope you don't mind the rest of the day. I'm probably going to call you Grandpa.
Aw.
And he says to me, he goes, absolutely you can. He goes, if I'm creating a good memory for you, he goes, absolutely. Call me Grandpa.
Oh, that's
It was a good one.
sweet.
Yeah. Like
That's
same
really sweet.
cheeks, same eyes, even the same eyebrows. My grandpa had these small little puffy eyebrows. Right? And oh my God, it was like a twin. Absolute twin. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is fascinating, because I think that, like, at its core, like, that's what doppelganger means, right? It's like twin entity or twin person or something like that. So I feel like that's a topic that is sort of endlessly mysterious, because we've all met someone who reminds us so much of someone else, right? Like, there's just, probably just like certain personality types, or especially when it's someone that's passed, and then you meet someone and they have like a mannerism or something that reminds you of that person, and you're kind of, really connected to them in that way. But I think like a full on, like, actually seeing, a second version of someone, or seeing someone that in a place where they shouldn't be, that's always that is like, how can that happen? And I think there's probably people who have much more interesting stories than I have. But again, like, some of those audio things, I wonder about too.
I often wonder too.
Mm.
Around here, many people believe it's little people.
Mm.
It's tricksters.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I think that, you just tapped into something. I think that's probably more often than not the case. Impersonations, trying to confuse you. I mean, tricksters, they certainly thrive on confusing humans.
Oh, very much so.
That's kind of
very much so.
one of their guiding principles.
I'm going to lead with this question here from a new listener in our audience, Lead-Laced Anarchy, because I would love to see you do a book on this. Lead-Laced Anarchy is asking, what do you mean have you seen the U.S. government lately? Obviously, a ton of Congress are Crossroads demons.
I don't really understand this question, but can you help me understand this question? Are you just asking about Crossroad demons? Because I know some stuff about Crossroads.
That's what I think is the Crossroads demons.
Oh, there are so many wonderful creepy things that dwell at the crossroads. You have, of course, the legend of the devil dwelling at the crossroads, right? Like that's a place. A crossroads is a place where you can invoke things. In Welsh mythology, or in Welsh folklore, there's something called the death bogle or the death bogle at the crossroads. And that is essentially this very dark and devilish, impish creature that will appear at the crossroads if you linger too long. And there's all kinds of stories about things that can be invoked at the crossroads, or I can't tell you how many spells involve doing something at the crossroads. I literally can't tell you that.
Well,
I'll be banned if I do. No, but there really are. There's there's something about that, like, it's like the crossing of the ley lines. But I'm not entirely sure what the question, like what they're getting at with that. But
I think what they're saying is that there is
impersonators. Yeah, sure.
But
certainly a lot of demonic entities in politics. Let's face that. Let's face facts.
But here's the thing about the crossroads. Okay. We learned about it through a musician called Robert Johnson.
Oh, yes, Robert Johnson.
Who was
traded his soul.
A terrible musician, could not play guitar. He went down to the crossroads in Mississippi, met with the devil.
Made a deal.
And made a deal, and then came back a couple days later, and he was a master at guitar and singing the blues. Mm-hmm. There's also another blues artist that said that had that happen. There is rumored that the Rolling Stones, the reason why they are still touring in their 80s is because they cut a deal with the devil. Bob Dylan allegedly cut a deal with the devil in order to get his music career going. I mean, there's even
was the devil Capitol Records, though?
I don't know. Here's the problem: is even if you take a lot of these old interviews with AI now, they can manipulate anything.
Of course.
So I was watching a video the other night on YouTube about it, and this gentleman was interviewing Bob Dylan back probably 30, 40 years ago. And Bob Dylan in that video stated how he cut the deal in order to have the fame and fortune. Right? He didn't allude that he sold his soul to the devil, but he talked about cutting a deal down at the crossroads. Now, was that AI? Was that something a little bit different?
Or was it metaphorical crossroads? Like he was at a crossroads in his career and he decided to go this more mainstream route instead of sticking to his folk wanderer guns, right? Or his political guns. Maybe that's what he means. Yeah. I mean, but you're also talking about, that's a time when the US government had the FBI had a file on John Lennon. So it's kind of hard to say, it's very easy to manipulate the media, especially with those wild musicians of the time, to manipulate it to make it seem like, they said the Beatles is the devil music, it's so tame by today's standards. But that's, so I nonetheless, the idea of going down to the crossroads and making a deal with the devil predates, Robert Johnson, we're going back into, cross-culturally, many cultures that have this idea that you can access things at a crossroads, it's a powerful place, right? It could be a place where ley lines cross. There's energetically, a crossroads is a place where you've got all four directions. So if you're doing any kind of magical work or manifestation, a place where you can clearly call in all four directions, there's all kinds of warning stories about not spending too much time there. So it's not without, it certainly has its roots in experiences that people had far before musicians got involved. But yeah, I mean, I
So
love that story about Robert Johnson.
here's a list of 10 musicians who allegedly sold their soul to the devil. From Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, who
He gets
is
accused of everything.
yeah, well, all because he bought Aleister Crowley's home on Loch Ness.
I mean, who wouldn't?
Niccolo Paganini, famous violinist and guitarist, born in 1782. He allegedly.
Okay.
Of course, there's Robert Johnson, to which the mainstream legend is about it. Another violinist, Giuseppe Tartini. Yep, he apparently did. John Lennon is famous for saying the Beatles were bigger than Jesus.
Okay, but that's not selling your soul to the devil. That's
I'm going off the list that came out in 2020 on listverse.com.
Okay.
Snoop Dogg apparently sold his soul to the devil.
Well, that is working really well for him.
Yeah, Snoop Dogg admits at the time, it's a quote, Snoop Dogg admits at the time he was in a dark place when he heard a voice saying, "Bring your lifestyle to me, I'll make it better." So, and then, of course, I'd mentioned the Rolling Stones. They're on the list. Let's see here. Gentleman named Philippe Moussard, French musician, composer, conductor from the 19th century. He was considered like a major rock star of his day. Tommy Johnson, blues musician, and the man is credited with starting the rumor that Robert Johnson had sold his soul at the Crossroads, which is odd because before that rumor got around, it was thought that Tommy Johnson had done the exact same thing. And
wasn't me, it was him.
And number one on the list, I'm going to read this all, is Bob Dylan. In 2016, Bob Dylan was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. It was pretty much a surprise to everyone except perhaps Bob. He explained in an interview, "It's a destiny thing. I made a devil's bargain and I'm holding up my end." That's the interview I heard. I apologize for butchering it earlier. And yeah, and apparently he could barely play anything. It goes on to say, well, that seems pretty conclusive. It shouldn't have come as a surprise, though. Bob Dylan apparently died on July 25th, 1965. Coincidentally, that was the same day he walked on stage at the Newport Folk Festival with an electric guitar. An electric guitar at a folk festival. To make it worse, he was accompanied by a rock band, and they launched into a decidedly unfolky rendition of his new song, "Like a Rolling Stone." Didn't go down well, so it comes as no surprise to any of the tambourine-shaking, harmonica-blowing folk fans that Dylan signed an unholy pact.
With the devil music, with the rock and roll.
Right?
Well, I mean, this is the kind of thing that got witches burned in the 1600s, you know? I mean, it's the same. To me, that's just the same thing. It's setting someone up to be the scapegoat because they have something that you want and you can't get yourself.
That is definitely a story that I would love to see an actual book on that.
Selling your soul to the devil?
I wonder how many people have done it. Look at the
I have a wonderful book that I got when I was in Scotland last year, and it's called... Okay.
Hold that thought. We're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Varla Ventura, we have her until the end of hour number 2. She'll be with us another segment on the show. This is Spaced Out
Radio. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we are clear.
Clear.
Zap him again. You know what that's from?
Clear.
Zap this son of a bitch again. If you know what that is from,
Put it in the chat.
put it in the chat.
And the first person that responds will get a pair of underwear.
We'll get a pair of Dave Scott underwear.
Yeah. Who says we don't do giveaways around here?
Hi, John Jackson. No Googling either.
Yeah, no Google. No cheating.
No Googling.
We've been having this discussion. This is totally off topic, but we've been having this discussion in my house because my son said, why do we call things piping hot? And I was like, that's a great question. Is it from like radiator pipes? Is it from plumbing? I mean, we know what it means, right? We know what piping hot means, but like, why is it piping hot? And then my friend said, oh, it probably has to do with bagpipers. I don't know. Like, what does it mean? You know, and I'm not Googling it. I'm actually trying to figure it out without just for the fun of it. You know, of course I could Google it and see what Google has to say about it. But
Simon the Likeable got it.
Oh,
Look at that. Wow, Simon.
you
I'm
really are likable.
I'm actually blown away by that. Now, Simon, be honest. Did you Google it or did you just know it?
Did you Bing it?
Cody Eiler, how you doing? Okay, so in the song Coma, they're working on a person who's in a coma. They're in surgery. And you hear the doctors yell clear as they're going to put the paddles on the guy.
Okay.
And this demonic voice says, zap him again.
Okay.
And then you hear the doctors, he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it. Clear. And then you hear the thump again. And then you hear them say, zap this son of a bitch again. And then Slash goes into this amazing solo. Earl the Gray, how you doing? Good to have you here, buddy. Yeah. Oh, Earl says smoking pipe is probably related to tobacco smoking. Sometimes if the fire is too hot and you oversaturated the withdrawals, you could get tongue burn.
Piping hot. I didn't even think about a pipe, like a smoking pipe.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I didn't think about that. I'm like, my first place I went was like, you know, when like hot water became a thing and you had like hot water heat in a house. But that I like this one a little bit better. Oh, it's piping hot. I like that better. I feel like that one's more accurate.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're gonna let's see. What are we gonna do? So next month, no. And then November, yes, but the thing is, we run in sometimes to Thanksgiving. So we have to just look at the calendar because you wouldn't have Thanksgiving on your calendar. Of course. I don't actually mind doing it on Thanksgiving, but sometimes I have guests in town, so
I'm more important than your guests.
depends on who my guests are.
Ooh.
If it's like my mom or something.
Oh,
sorry, but yeah.
I'll take second fiddle to Varla Ventura.
Violina
Violina Ventura.
Violina Ventura.
Thank you tonight to Richard, Mel WD40, T-Bone, and Cosmic Joe for the amazing super chats. We're going to get to some more audience questions here. You were going to finish up something when we got back.
It's this book. Oh, let's see if I can see the name of it. I think it's called like Cloven. It's a book about the devil. Hold on. I know right where it is. I got it. It's called Cloven Country, The Devil and the English Landscape.
Beautiful.
And it's kind of all about like, you know how like so many places are called like Devil's Slide, Devil's Canyon,
Yes.
Devil's Mountain. It's sort
Yep.
of about that, but also about why and the stories behind it and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Hold on right there again. I'm going to cut you off again. Here we go. Here comes the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in for the weird and strange, and that's where we're going tonight with Varla Ventura. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio or listen to us on any major podcast network for free. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here is Varla Ventura, author extraordinaire, Our Cryptid World. She comes in once a month to come talk about the monsters among us. Her website, varlaventura.net. Varla, you... right before the break, we're introducing a book because we were talking about people who had sold their soul to the devil.
Yeah, well, I picked up this book actually when I was in Scotland last year, and I, of course, it's a hardcover book, and it was the very first day of my trip, but I felt that it would be sort of hard to find, and I didn't really want to wait. Anyway, it's called Cloven Country, The Devil and the English Landscape by Jeremy Hart. Let's see, I can hold and it's sort of an exploration of all, how we have all of these places that are called the Devil's Canyon and Devil's Slide and Devil's Mountain and Devil's Rock. So it kind of explores those, but also explores like the legends behind them and why they're called, why they have this reputation, and why we're sort of like so obsessed with the devil and those kind of situations. So yeah, very interesting.
That is awesome.
I do love a good book about demons, not gonna lie.
Did you hear the latest Coca-Cola controversy?
Okay, if you want to talk about the devil incarnate, we saw Oreo flavored Coca-Cola. So if you want to go the devil incarnate, that has got to be it.
Well, Coca-Cola, and this is all over social media right now. Coca-Cola is doing you can name your own bottle, like put your name on the bottle, like Varla Ventura, Dave Scott. So there's these people who've been testing it out. And apparently, if you put I love Jesus, it will not allow you. But if you put I love Buddha or I love Vishnu or I love Allah or Muhammad or whoever, it allows you to do it. But if you say I love God, it doesn't. If you say I love Satan, it allows it.
Really? What if your name is Jesus? That's kind of a bummer for you.
I understand. And apparently, not to get political.
Okay, I want to try it. I need a bottle.
I know our audience. In our chat room, every time I mention U.S. politics, they start going crazy in there. Okay. But apparently you can put Kamala 2024 in there or Kamala 2024, but you can't put Trump 2024. So there's all this editing stuff. I'm wondering if it works with Dear Leader up here. I got to figure that out.
That feels like a constructed rumor that is not actually true.
But when you see a lot of other people doing it, it may or may not be.
Tulpa. It's a tulpa, Dave.
Tulpa here.
Oh, I should correct myself. Now I would like to try it.
I'm gonna go try it too.
Yeah.
That's one of those
Now I
things.
want to try it. Now I want to know, can I really do that?
I have to
Because,
see it to,
yeah.
you know.
Okay, let's try it and then report back.
Okay.
Fun.
All right. Well, let's move on to an audience question here. Okay, because I think it's amazing the questions that our audience comes up with.
Yes, because you have a beautiful audience.
Let's go to Simon. Varla, how do you stay so positive having these encounters with scary creatures?
Oh, you are so likable. I really like you're really living up to your name, Simon the Likable. You know what? I love them. It makes me happy. Like I actually have always gotten a great deal of joy. Even you can ask my mom. Even when I was a little kid, and I've always gotten a lot of joy from scary things. I've always loved ghost stories, cemeteries. So I think I stayed positive because it shows me I don't know, I kind of like the idea that magic is real and that we don't know everything and that there is a lot of unknown. And I think we in general can benefit from having these encounters or talking about them and sort of questioning question reality, but just like actually learning about past experiences and what I'm very interested in, like the folkloric record, and seeing some of the parallels between what people are talking about today and how that compares to what people were talking about 100, 200, 400, 500 years ago. I think it's very interesting. And I think it's a really endless, boundless topic to me. And there's always something to learn. There's always something, a creature that I've never heard of, or there's an experience that someone's had that I find it very affirming. And so I think that helps me feel like, the stuff that gets me down is like social media. It's so boring and trite, right? Like it's not all social media, but like, you get on there and it's just like, oh, buy this thing or buy that thing. And it feels very competitive. That's the kind of thing that gets me kind of like bummed out or stressed out, or, like the oversaturation of the news feed. But give me a ghost hunt or talk to me about cryptids. And it's like a kid in a candy store. So one thing though I do think is important is for people to, like, it's not the same for everyone. And I think it kind of has a lot to do with like I also know my limits, and I know when I can and can't go there. So like, how sometimes you just can't go there. You just can't, you're not ready for it. You're not in the mood for it, whatever. And so I don't go wandering in a place that I think is haunted if I'm feeling really depressed or under the weather or anything like that. So I do certainly like take that into account. You have to protect yourself, keep yourself sane, or as sane as you can be when you believe in mermaids.
I love it. Let's go to Zenzabil here, who is asking, could one say that tulpas are akin to an egregore?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I think those could be probably in the same, like kind of like a manifestation or a collective fear, right? I feel like an egregore has more negative connotations, whereas a tulpa could also be something positive, but maybe I could be misunderstanding those terms, but that's kind of my I think so.
All right, moving on. Let's go to Marty. What do you think a dogman is?
It's a werewolf.
That's what I think too.
Yeah, dogman is totally werewolf. It's the The thing is the stories that we have about werewolves, I think what we think of is in terms of like we think of like Michael J. Fox, Teen Wolf, like this, where you see this person like transform. I don't think it happens like that. And I also don't think it happens that quickly. I think it's a slow decline. It's a slow decline until you descend into this situation where you can no longer function amongst, mankind, and you kind of have to like now shape shifting all that. But I do think, I think Dogman is a werewolf. I think again we are using different words for the same thing, and I do think it probably looks a little different than maybe a wolf, but so do dogs. So I think we're describing what people would have called, in medieval times, a werewolf.
Right.
Yeah. Is
Let
this
us.
Marty from like way back in the Marty days of Marty when I first started coming on the show and we had wonderful Marty? I think that's Marty.
Might be Marty.
Yeah.
Might be.
Marty.
Let's go to another question because we got a bunch of them here. We only got 13 minutes. Blue Cruz is asking, have you heard of a changeling taking on the appearance of a U.S. soldier returning home from the Middle East War on Terror, displaying unusual behavior around his mother?
I have not heard that. That's interesting. I have heard, if you ever listen to like Jim Harold's campfire stories, I don't know if you ever, I know you know Jim Harold. He's wonderful, and you've had him on, and I think you've been on his show. But his campfire stories, every once in a while, you get someone who was stationed in the Middle East, and they'll tell a story about something, and they talk a lot about it being like a jinn, which is sort of like very roughly translated as a demon, but it's a shapeshifter that can take on the appearance of others. But changeling, so that would mean that whatever this is took the actual human and took its form and then came back. I haven't heard of that specific story, but I have heard a number of stories of like very strange encounters and seeing some pretty dark entities. And the jinn are, I mean, they're kind of trickstery. They are very trickstery, and do have a little bit of like a changeling thing to them. So that's would be my guess, is that it would be more in that category. But I don't know that specific story.
All right, let's move on to another question here. Let's go to J Truth Seeker. Have you seen those giant praying mantids in the woods that are from 7 to 24 feet tall, just like the insect? And apparently they can mimic people's voices too? That's a woo question right there.
I have not. That is hard woo. I have not seen a giant praying mantis. I haven't even really heard of too many giant insects. I mean, I've heard like some urban legends and things like that. The mimicking people's voices, certainly I have experienced that in the forest, and I think many of us have. Or you just talked earlier about your friend who heard you in the woods. So that, but I haven't heard of a giant praying mantis. Have you, Dave?
No, not that big. Not that big.
I mean, the biggest one I've ever seen is like maybe like I don't know, 3 inches, 4 inches at the most. But yeah,
Right.
7 to 24 feet tall. It's like taller than a house.
I hear you. I
haven't seen that, and not too many things scare me, but a 24-foot insect might push me over the edge.
I would totally agree with that. Let's go to Paul. Varla, is there a classification way of identifying different types of spirits based on how they manifest?
There are a number of theories about how to kind of classify supernatural creatures. For example, in the fairy lexicon, there are sort of like the trickster fairies, the trooping fairies, the ones that dwell in the sea. There's certainly, and there is some early literature from like the Theosophical Society and some early spiritualists who were making active contact with. So spiritualism, when that started, that was a little bit of a shift of a mindset. It wasn't just that like we were talking to the dead or trying to get some kind of divine info. We were basically like trying to make contact with the dead to find out more about what was going on in the afterlife and to get wisdom that we could then use in our daily lives. And so with the kind of popularity of spiritualism, mid 1800s, people did begin to kind of create more classifications, demonic, friendly, all of those kinds of things. And a lot of those were rooted in actually in medieval, the Catholic Church was sort of fleshing out all of the non-compliant citizens. All the non-compliant citizens. So they had some methods for discerning what types of spirits. I mean, if you look back into some of the stories about witches, like the Maleficarum, which is like this publication from, I think, 15 something, and it's about witches and what they're up to and who they're cavorting with. That has some classification of spirits. So there are a number of like early publications that have that. And I think today we kind of think of like, we, one of my favorite, and this is a very affordable book. So there, this wonderful writer, Raymond Buckland, he was known for writing books about witchcraft. Really, he was one of the sort of like revivalists of traditional English witchcraft and brought it to the United States. But he also was a very avid paranormal investigator and knew a lot about the supernatural. And there's just this little book. It's called like Buckland's Book of Ghosts or the Wiser Book of Ghosts or something like that. And he's got this, it's a really easy read, very affordable book. And it's got kind of like the whole lexicon, classifications of all of the different types of ghosts. I use that book as a source all the time. I highly recommend it because he has a very engaging writing style. And it's very easy to just like flip to the page and read about that kind of like, and he really kind of like aggregates cross-culturally as well. So that would be a great one to dive into.
Let's go to Polly here, who is asking, what would you say to someone that feels paranormal things, but is scared of opening themselves up to it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one because I think if you're afraid, that's a legitimate emotion. And I guess I think it just sort of, I think I would encourage you to try it anyway. Come on, let's get on the ride. You won't be scared. I think that I would just take it very slowly. And when you have, I mean, certainly finding resources like shows like this and people who are talking about things and books where people are talking about, their encounters. One of the things I love, I know I just mentioned Jim Harold's campfire stories, but I love that because it's like the old Ghost to Ghost, right? The old like Art Bell Coast to Coast, where people would call in with their stories. And it was just these ordinary people, right? Like people who didn't identify as necessarily like practitioners or paranormal investigators, but they're just going about their lives and have this like really profound experience. So I think just remember that anytime you see or feel something, it's actually really like, I think of it as a gift. It really is a gift. You have a gift and you can just choose. You can totally turn it off. If it's too much for you, you can totally turn it off. But it's not everyone can feel or see not everyone has the second sight, as they say. So to have that is actually really a gift. And that's, but if it scares you, it's never good to go into something that kind of like, I don't know, you could exacerbate that fear, but I think it's not as scary. It's not as scary in the moment. Come on, you can do it. You can
All
totally
right, let's
do it.
go on to Paranormal here. We have 4 minutes left. You spoke of joy when dealing with these creatures. Have you ever felt fear or threatened?
I've been afraid a couple of times. Maybe like threatened maybe once, but I have this tendency to when I feel threatened, I just fight back immediately. So that, and my way of fighting back against something that would be threatening in like a paranormal way is to just like, it's like you just put an iron curtain down and they have no access to you. So I have felt a little bit of fear here and there, but I think just keep in mind, I've been doing this since I was a child. So that's probably why I find more joy in it and why I have less fear. Just because it's very normal to me. It's very normal to me. I mean, I grew up in a household with like, Aleister Crowley was on the bookshelf next to Dion Fortune, next to, how to develop your psychic abilities, and Sybil Leek. And so those were things that like were imparted to me at a very young age and like very young, 5, 6 years old, we were doing paranormal experiments around the house. So, yeah, I'm sure I've felt afraid a few times and, yeah, threatened probably maybe like once or twice. Generally, I feel pretty good about it though. I've been lucky.
Kira wants to know, what is your favorite being or creature or two?
Ooh, well, I love a good Pooka. Pooka is a trickster, is like the ultimate trickster fairy. I love a good Pooka. So yeah, Pookas, they are shapeshifters. They can appear as horses, black horses with red eyes. They can appear as rabbits. Sometimes they appear as other animals or like eagles or things like that. But Pookas are high on my list. I love them. They have this tendency to prey on people who no one else believes. For example, the town drunk. So they like non-credible witnesses. And they really just exist to, I mean, like all tricksters, they do, there is a lesson in there, right? And it's usually like, if you run into a Pooka on your way home, first of all, you shouldn't have left that late. Like, why were you at the pub so late? And now you're like on this dark road at night, you're near a cliff, the sea is thrashing beneath you, and you just saw something shapeshift before your eyes, and now you're scared. Okay, it's time to reevaluate your choices in life, right? So I feel like they have this great role also to kind of like, I like a good disruptor. I gotta say, I do like a good disruptor, and I feel like Pookas are very good at that. And then second to Pookas, well, I already talked about Banshees, so I'm a pretty huge fan of Banshees. And then I'm a big fan of leprechauns. I think we have a misunderstanding or like a sort of an idea of what leprechauns are. And they're actually like these very fascinating creatures. They go back very deep into Irish folklore. They're not as stereotypical, like the Lucky Charms guy is just a, Victorian stereotype. But yeah, they're creepy little, funny little guys out there.
Varla, it's that
Also
time.
tricksters.
Good night to you. Thank you for coming on again this month.
Thanks for having me.
I'd have to get you on with Sweet Robbie G next month because of Halloween night, but we'll get you on next month sometime. Love you, Varla. VarlaVentura.net.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Swamp Dweller is back. Then weird news in the Cryptid Report.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Yeah, maybe that's what we could do is get you on with Sweet Robbie G, because I know he'd love the opportunity for November or for October, maybe November.
What nights does he do?
Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of just depends because we're going into like,
Oh, I get that.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
get
Okay. Well, yes.
In
Yes.
touch.
Of course. Of course. Yeah.
All right, buddy.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Nice to see
Love
you.
you.
Talk
You
to
take
you
care.
later. Okay. Bye.
Varla Ventura, everybody. I'll be right back. once again, I apologize for our YouTube and Twitch audience and our X audience who is watching me be blurry right now because we are having a windstorm here that's kind of affecting the internet, but it's not affecting the audio portion, which is good. And yeah, it was weird how I just clicked in there, isn't it? So I do apologize. I don't know if Robin Haynes is going to make it because of the hurricane. We'll figure that cryptid part out here momentarily. Hi, Ross Lambda. How you doing? Thank you tonight to Marty, CS, Cosmic Joe, T-Bone, Mel WD40, and Richard for the great super chats. Very much appreciate the love and support. We go from there. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, so make sure you check it on out. Have some fun with it. We're going to come back here in about 5 seconds. Here we go with the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. It's jam-packed. Thank you for tuning us in. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you joining us for the fun and adventure that we do each and every night. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tulpas. Tulpas is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. It is that time of the night where we head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. I've never shared this experience with anyone besides my brother. When I was about 13 years old, I lived in a rural British Columbia. One night, I was in the hot tub on the deck outside, watching the woods, taking in the silence. It was winter, and we had recently had snowfall that left around knee-deep snow. It was around 2 to 3 a.m., and out of nowhere, this vast wolf came out of the woods. It was bigger than anything I had ever seen. I remember its shimmering silver coat and bright, piercing green eyes. As this wolf was walking along the fence of our paddocks, it locked eyes with mine, and we just stared at each other for what felt like an eternity as he walked past me, both alone in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere. To this day, what happened instantly made a spin and shiver go down my spine. As the wolf passed, he walked towards our barn with our horses in it. It became darker as it entered the barn, but the other side still had a bright light illuminating the outside, which I could see. Halfway through, this wolf changed from a wolf to a much larger, bigger, broad-shouldered person. The horses didn't make a single sound, and this person, this thing, who now stood roughly 7 feet tall, rounded the corner towards the open field, but never emerged from the other side, and I never saw it again. My brother had his encounter with this same wolf hybrid creature, I'm guessing, when he told me that he woke up randomly one night from the feeling of being watched. He then looked out his window to see a vast wolf walking away from his window, so I'm guessing it was watching him sleep for one reason or another. This place we lived was on old native ground from what I was told. Our barn was an old schoolhouse where the Catholic priest would put the native children and teach them lessons about Christ. It still had an old desk and several chairs inside. My brother and I have seen children's faces in the panes of the glass from that barn, and lights turning on and off randomly. We had closet doors slam repeatedly for minutes at a time, footsteps and feelings of being watched. In my room, I saw glowing red eyes on the ceiling and hid under my covers till morning. Anyway, the main subject of this story, and the subject I'm seeking answers to, is what I encountered outside that night. After I looked around myself, the closest thing I could find was either skinwalkers or wendigos. But from what I've read online, these things usually have deformed features or something like that makes them horrific looking. What I saw wasn't necessarily normal, but it was a rather regular wolf besides it being super massive until it changed its entire form. I know this is long-winded, but thank you for sharing it.
Thank you to Swamp Dweller for another creative and spooky story right here from British Columbia, of all places. Awesome. If you want more Swamp Dweller stories, head to his YouTube channel. They're all free. Just type in Swamp Dweller, hit subscribe, ring that bell, and you can listen to thousands just like that. Let's get to the Cryptid Report. Now, Robin Haynes is usually with us at this time of the night. However, due to the hurricane that's going on down south, she cannot make it because, well, the power's out. Yeah, you can't come on this show with the power being out. That doesn't work. And hopefully she'll be okay and many others will be okay. You know, I live in a forest fire area during the summers, and that's scary enough. I couldn't imagine, being in a hurricane alley or something like that, or tornadoes or anything like that. I was in one tornado area back in 1987 in Edmonton, Alberta, when I was a kid. And that was scary enough as it is. I could not imagine, not at all, sitting through a hurricane. Oh, that just terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me. But nonetheless, we got a cryptid report to do. So I will tell you this. One of the things I want to talk about is I was talking to a gentleman today about Sasquatch and being stalked. He was telling me a story how up north he was out on the reservation and he was picking mushrooms. Lots of good mushrooms to eat up there. And no, we're not talking the illegal kind. And let me tell you, he said all of a sudden he had this smell emanating all around him. And no, it wasn't him that caused it. He said he didn't hear any animals, didn't hear any sounds, but the smell was moving, and it was moving all around him. And he really didn't believe in Sasquatch at that point. He had heard the legends and stories passed generation to generation, but he had never had his own encounter. But on this particular day, he knew that he was being stalked. Now, when Sasquatch don't want you in their area, they will stalk you. We don't know why. We don't know if it's territorial, or maybe they've been there a while and don't want you around there anymore. But I can tell you from firsthand experience, twice in the same area, being chased out by Sasquatch is not a fun experience. It's not fun at all. Especially when they are making noise and you have no power to do anything. you're not the biggest game in the forest at that point. You're not the apex predator. Oh, no. The 2 times it happened to me, it happened out at the story, and maybe many of you have heard me talk about Flight 21. You probably have if you listen to this show, because I talk about it a lot. The first time was in 2018 when we did a paranormal investigation up there with my buddy Mark, who is our armed guard, and Merle, our paranormal investigator. And we were investigating it. It was in daytime, and we were the only ones there. We're like 25, 26 miles into the forest. There's nobody out there. There's no traffic. There's nobody wandering around. There's one way in, one way out. And in order for anybody to come in or out, they'd have to pass us. And on this particular October day, we were investigating the crash site, and Merle asks whether or not there was any more debris in this area. So we decided to take this deer trail through the trees, and we come to this meadow. And Mark stops at the tree line. He says, hey, you guys go on over, take a look, see if there's anything else. I'll stay here because in case any predators come, I got a good line of sight. Not a problem. Well, that's when we started hearing the Sasquatch chatter. Yeah, that's pretty much what it sounds like. Happened twice. We go back to the original location, not even thinking Sasquatch. Mark kind of wanders away about 80 feet into the area where the exit is. Merle's up by a piece of landing gear doing more investigation when all of a sudden the trees and brush behind him about 20 feet starts shaking. And at that exact same time as Merle is escaping that area and he's like, I'm out of here, Mark puts down his backpack and aims his rifle right in front of him through the trees because he can hear something coming at him. Where's the exit? It's right in between them. Now, the second time it happened was earlier this year when we were out there filming with Samantha Mowat, Merle, Mark as our armed guard, and our cameraman Richie and myself. We left base camp on the Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening after a torrential rain, and we went wandering down the path. It felt like we were being watched. We turned down another path, and that's where Samantha found a 17-inch print. And we could hear whatever it was following us through the trees. And every time we stopped, it stopped. That being said, we kept going. And when we came back up the trail, footprint was still there, but that feeling that Sasquatch was there, or whatever it was gone. And as we turned back up to go back up to base camp, we sit down, we're preparing for our next set of shots. And that's when Mark was doing a perimeter walk about 10 feet around our tent and finds another fresh Sasquatch print. Later on that night, fast forward it, as we're getting our final shots and whatever we needed in there, final experiments, we could hear something moving through the trees all around us. And the longer we stayed, the closer it seemed to be getting, like we were upsetting something. And I will never forget the look in Mark's eyes. To him, he will say he was calm. But that's the first time I've ever been in the forest with Mark, and I've been in the forest with him at least 100 times, where I finally saw fear in his eyes. And that's what got me going. So we quickly packed up. We moved all the stuff to the vehicles. We loaded up the vehicles. And as we were leaving, from behind us, there was this loud, shrieking whistle. Samantha heard it. I heard it. Merle heard it. Mark heard it. Cameraman Richie heard it. We're being followed out. That is not a comfortable feeling, because it's easy for skeptics to sit there and say, oh, there had to be someone in the forest out there playing tricks on you. But if you live in an area that is sparse in population, and even more sparse during the non-hunting season, you know that it's not a human that's running around. And in our area, we don't have a lot of feral humans. It's too cold. It's not like the Appalachians. So for us, we knew what was stalking us. We knew that we had a choice. We could leave for our own safety, or stick around, as the saying goes, F around and find out. None of us really wanted to find out, man. How would you react to that? How would you react to just being stalked? And it wasn't a bear. It wasn't a moose. It wasn't a mountain lion. It wasn't wolves. Every creature makes distinct sounds. It wasn't a deer that was rummaging through the trees. You could tell the difference. You could tell the difference in size by the sound of the steps, the way the creature is moving, the grunting, the huffing, the puffing, the breathing. You could tell. And let me tell you, it is not a comfortable feeling. It is like one of those moments where you see something tragic happen right in front of you and you think, damn, another 10 seconds and I would have been involved in that. Or if I would have turned right instead of turning left, that car would have hit me. It's easy to be skeptical when you're not in that situation, nor have you ever been in that situation. But to be put in that atmosphere when you know you're not the big dog on campus, that is terrifying. And being stalked is something that we have learned with Sasquatch, that when they've had enough of you in their area, that's how they seem to push you out. Allegedly, it is believed that they travel in threes. Many people in the community call them sentries, that they're the watchers, the protectors, the bodyguards of the family that's around them. And when they start moving, or they don't want you in the area, they triangulate you out to exit the direction they want you to exit. It's all about control. It's like a safety mechanism for them. That time in 2018, when Merle, Mark, and I got scared out of the forest, we knew there were two of them. Was there a third? If we wouldn't have went down the path, but instead went up the path more towards the crash site, would the third one have been there to block it? And the funny part about it is, you hear them. They make lots of noise using the trees as camouflage, but you never see them. So you're being stalked by something you can't see, you can only hear, that when you go quiet, it goes quiet. It makes for a very uncomfortable situation. It's not fun at all. I don't recommend it. This is why I much prefer going to my other Sasquatch area, where it's quite open. There's a lot of trees that have been taken down for forest fire protection. And if anything sneaks up on us, we're going to have time to see it. We're going to have the ability to see it. It's much safer there. But when you're stalked by one of these, you don't know what their intentions are. I mean, I'm not expecting them to say, hey, do you got a bottle of water I can borrow? Because I'm kind of thirsty. I'm not expecting them to come shake hands and say, hi, I'm Ock the Sasquatch. My family's hiding in the trees over there because they're kind of freaked out. Do you mind leaving our private area here? You're not going to get that. Could it be their wild instincts? Could be. We really don't know. It's not something that is very comfortable. And to be honest with you, the more I think about it, the more weirded out I get. And I still talk to Merle and Mark and Samantha about this because they were involved too. I want to know how they felt about it. I know I've talked to Mark quite a bit about it. He felt very uncomfortable. He'll tell you he wasn't scared, but he will say this, that he did feel concerned enough that he made the call as our safety guide that it was time to go. And when Mark said it was time to go, it was time to go. So when you're out in the forest, be careful. Because if you don't know the area and you don't know what they are, and you don't even know you're in their area, you got to watch for the signs of what is going on around you. Know your animals. Know your scat. People don't know what scat is. We're talking poop here. Know what animals sound like. Just go to YouTube. They have an incredible database of animals and what they sound like and their different sounds. Whether it's mountain lions or grizzly bears or black bears or wolves or coyotes, even rabbits that are scared or in fear. Squirrels and chipmunks. Believe it or not, they are called nature's security alarm, because the minute a squirrel sees you, it alerts everybody, or pardon me, not everybody, every animal in the forest that you're around, that there's something strange around, that there are predators around. Always watch your clock, whether it's on your cell phone, in your vehicle, or if you still wear a watch. Always watch your clock, because you never know if you're going to experience missing time. The forest has a weird way of doing that. UFOs have a weird way of doing that. When I'm in the forest, I'm checking my clock every 10 to 15 minutes and always monitoring, okay, this is the time. You don't want things like that to happen to you. Now, I'm not trying to scare you guys off and say don't go in the forest. But if you are specifically going in to try and have a Sasquatch encounter in an area where there are known cryptids there, it's not just a tenting party or a campfire party, man. You got to know when it's time to go. You got to know when to stay. And it tests your own bravery on whether or not you have the ability to stand around when stuff starts to hit the fan. And sometimes the beauty of nature is nature will usually tell you when something is not right. You just need to learn the signs and follow the guidelines. That's the rules nature has. It doesn't matter if you're armed or not. You could be armed like Rambo or not. Just stay safe out there. That's your Crypted report. Coming up next, it's the Day 101 and the weird news of the week. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
once again, I apologize to everybody for our video feed tonight. It's not the prettiest. We are having a major windstorm outside, which is screwing with the internet tonight. I'm surprised we haven't actually been cut off the air yet. Hello quickly to Astral Fugitive. What if you were in Sasquatch South Central? That's why we're always armed, man. Who else has joined us here? Javier from Crypted 559. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Who else has joined us here? Sweet Amy WC. How you doing? Simon, Dave, do you think the Ouija board and Estes method upset them the most? No, not at all. I think a Ouija board might, but not the Estes method. And Joanne, Paul Demon, how you guys doing? Guardian Jackpot, good to see you. Jeff Nadolny on the show. He's interviewing military hunting dogmen. I'm not really interested in having people who are doing the interviewing. I would sooner interview the people who are doing the military hunting. Now, if we're talking about one of the dogmen groups that's dressing up like they're playing army men to go look for these things, I'm not interested in them. Who else we got here? Anybody else? I think we're up to date. Tim has no voice right now. He's got what I had on Sunday and Monday. So hopefully by tomorrow it starts to lighten up. Sweet Robbie G. Absolutely, buddy. So many problems for us to live stream in 2024, but near flawless broadcast from the moon in 1969. Not saying we didn't go, but oh, hell yeah, buddy. Oh, hell yeah. That is awesome. We're going to give you the W for that one, Robbie. If you guys have any guest suggestions that are not of the wacko conspiracy theory type, you can send them to Dirty Filth, bookings@spacedoutradio.com, bookings@spacedoutradio.com. Let me put that in the chat room. Vanessa, no virus talk in the chat room. You know that. Thank you, my dear. Paul Scott. Dave, do you just hunt for Sasquatch to experience him, or do you go out and attempt to try and prove they exist? I go out for the experience. I do not bring a camera. I don't care to photograph them. I don't care to videotape them. I'm not there for anybody else but myself. I know that sounds very, very selfish, especially for the show that I do. But I've already seen them. I know they exist. My dream is to have an extremely close encounter, if I could handle that. And when I say extremely close, I'm talking within 15 feet, 20 feet. I'd love to touch one, just to look at it. But that's the way I do it. I know other people have criticized me for that. I'm not too worried about it. I just want to enjoy the sights and beauty of this creature because it's gorgeous. Tokeland, how you doing? Michael Fontaine, what's happening? Thank you tonight to Marty, CS, Richard, Mel WD40, T-Bone, and Cosmic Joe. And here we go with the final half hour in like 9 seconds. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight, Day 101, and the weird news of the week coming up momentarily. But first, I want to remind all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio or on any major podcast network. They're all free. The only thing I want in return, if you don't mind, is just hit subscribe or follow and listen. Yeah, that's it. All free. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It's that time of the night, that time of the week where I yell at everybody to get off my lawn. It's the Dave 101.
Open up the door, it's Dave! Dave, D-A-V-E! What is this?
Dave's not here. It's the day 101.
I can see you're really upset about this. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over.
It's a mess.
Journalism is a very, very tough career when it's done properly. And over the last 25 years, we have seen numerous journalists really disgrace themselves by the way they speak in opinion rather than fact, what journalism is supposed to be rated on. It's happening in politics. It's happening in daily life. The I'm offended crowd today has really taken over a news story. No longer do we hear what's happening in city council, but we will hear about somebody who's offended because they got splashed by water at a water park. It is ridiculous the way the mainstream media has taken off. And what it has caused is an influx in citizen journalism, but more so rogue journalism that we see a lot more of today. This comes on the heels of investigative journalist, I think is a term that I probably wouldn't use with this guy, more like independent journalist, former Intercept writer Ken Klippenberg. Now, you heard it, or Klippenstein, pardon me. You heard us talk about Ken Klippenstein a number of months ago when he decided to write an article for The Intercept about UFO whistleblower David Grush. And in that article, he let out the information about David Grush's medical background. Now, there are certain things in journalism that true journalists do not do. We don't report on suicides unless it's someone famous. We don't report on health concerns, marital problems, or anything like that. It's none of the public's business. And Klippenstein, in his article, said that he was given access to David Grush's medical records, which he released to the public. This is considered very vile and very rogue and very, very disruptive of true journalism and what it actually stands for. Because journalists are not supposed to have aha, caught you moments. We're supposed to report the facts as fairly, as calmly, and as peacefully as possible without disrupting the public. We are the eyes and the ears of the public. We are the police officers of the police officers and of the politicians. Unfortunately, infotainment has taken over such a beautiful career. And like Klippenstein, people out there just don't care. They don't have feelings. They don't have remorse. They think a story is a story, and I'm going to report the story. It's not how it works. It's bad journalism. More so, it's bad etiquette, not only as a journalist, but as a human being. Case in point, again, Klippenstein has now been banned from X. His account was suspended because after the David Grush fiasco, he ended up getting his contract released from The Intercept. He has his own website where he posts his stories now and asks for followers, subscribers looking to help him out. Well, the reason why this time he was kicked off social media and the platform X was because he actually ran a hacked dossier of J.D. Vance. Now, this is going to sound political, and I normally don't go down this road. But this is twice this guy has stepped up to the plate and swung and missed. First was Grush, now J.D. Vance. Now, the hacked dossier that he released, I don't know what's on it. Don't really care what's on it. However, certain things that are on it should never, ever hit the mainstream public. Example, in this case, he published a couple of things that got his account suspended. According to journalist Justin Baragona, who talked with somebody from X, Klippenstein was temporarily suspended for violating our rules on posting unredacted private personal information, specifically Senator Vance's physical addresses and the majority of his social security number. This is a no-no. When you are dealing with people's lives, it's one thing to attack the person or the credibility of a person as a journalist, because that's part of the job. It's part of the game. It's what makes journalism ugly. But you never try to hurt someone personally for the sake of being a jerk. It's ruthless. It's callous. And I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're a Democrat. And remember, I have no skin in the game. I'm Canadian. And we got our own problems up here with Dear Leader that need to be addressed within the next year. But at no point would I want to see Kamala Harris's social insurance number, social security number. I wouldn't want to see her address, her personal phone number. That's none of my business. Same whether it was Trump, Vance, or Walz, or any politician. There are hoops you got to go through to talk to these people. But the reason why I bring this up is in the UFO world, we are seeing a lot of great independent journalism, citizen journalism happen, and veteran journalists who are really trying to bring to heart this story of UFOs and the cover-up that is happening. The problem that we have is, though, with the increase in social media channels, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, we have many people who hide behind their keyboard, even though they're in front of the camera, and they think just because they have a microphone or fingers that can type, that they can say whatever they want. For every action, there's a reaction, and sometimes those actions are not called for. Too many aha, caught you moments. Too many people expressing opinion as fact. It's been caught numerous times in the UFO world. It's been caught in mainstream media over the last number of weeks. In fact, in Canada, earlier this week, two Canadian television workers, CTV workers, two journalists, were fired from their job because they took 3 interviews from a politician and spliced it into one in order to make said politician and his party look bad. The political party called out CTV and their parent company, Bell Media, for this, and Bell Media reacted, and they ended up firing the people. This was the statement released. CTV National News issued the following statement regarding a report on its September 22nd, 2024 broadcast. A report on Sunday's CTV National News broadcast did not meet our expected and required higher editorial standards. We sincerely and unreservedly apologize for the manner this report went to air and the false impression it created. As its standard practice, we conducted an investigation to determine whether a breach of our editorial policies and practices had occurred in this case. The investigation found that 2 members of the CTV team are responsible for altering a video clip, manipulating it for a particular story. Their actions violate our editorial standards and are unacceptable. Those 2 individuals are no longer members of the CTV News team. Now, the problem that we have here, and even though that's news and how it pertains to UFOs and the subjects that we cover, is that the people, for the most part, who are having the channels out there, they are invested emotionally. When you invest in something emotionally, you take away clarity. And to be a journalist, whether it's a professional journalist or a radio journalist or a newspaper or print or online or television, you want to stay by those standards. But the I'm offended crowd and those who have an emotional investment in UFOs because they've had a sighting or they've had an alien experience or they are just so up on this subject. They fell in love with Lou Elizondo. They fell in love with Chris Mellon. They fell in love with the subject going to Washington, D.C. They fell in love with the Nimitz incident. They made an emotional investment into the topic. And when you bring emotion into the subject matter, you've skewed the line of telling what is true. Your truth, my truth, and the real truth are going to be different every time. They really are. And in today's world of aha, caught you moments, where if you tell a story on Thursday last month, and it's Thursday this month, and you retell that story, but you miss that story by an inch, people are like, well, see, he's lying. He's not telling the truth. Even though you are. Look, there's some bad stuff out there. And even the good ones get it wrong sometimes. But the journalistic side of UFOs, we have to keep clean. It is something that this subject is way too important to humanity. It is way too important to the future of this planet to not take this and report on this seriously. And when you have reporters out there who go rogue, who are willing to not played by journalistic integrity, whether they're citizen journalists or professionals like Klippenstein, we're in for a world of hurt, because that whole idea that we don't trust the mainstream media anymore is now going to come in and affect the UFO world. I'm tired of the fake news out there. I'm saying this as a journalist the last 26 years. We need integrity. And in order to move this story forward, it needs to be treated with integrity. Rob G., our after hours host, said something very important to me the other day. He's like, man, we got to get this story out, and we got to get to the bottom of it and get to the facts of the matter, because facts do matter. Sources do matter. And a good journalist is never going to give up their sources. You may not agree with what they are saying, but they're never going to give up their sources. And that's what we try and do between Rob and myself here at Spaced Out Radio. Because we're going to keep bringing it. We're going to keep busting it. And we want to make sure that we're bringing you the proper information rather than the garbage that's out there like Ken Klippenstein. That's your Dave 101. Here's the weird news of the week.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News.
Loud noises!
I am good at things, fighting and reading the news.
It's time once again for Spaced Out Radio's Weird News of the Week.
If you're a baseball fan, you're going to know this story. A Florida man has filed a lawsuit to temporarily stop the auctioning of Shohei Ohtani's 50th home run ball. So this story comes as the ball is being sold at auction, and the gentleman in question is saying the ball was stolen from him moments after he secured it. Max Mattis's representatives say their client gained possession of the LA Dodgers star historic home run ball on September 19th, the man's 18th birthday, before Chris Belansky took it away. The ball has since been turned over to the Golden Auctions, a New Jersey-based auction house specializing in trading cards, collectibles, and memorabilia. The Miami-Dade County judge said in an emergency hearing on Thursday that the motion for a temporary injunction was deferred and an evidentiary hearing will be held on October 10th. The order says the auction can start, but the house will not sell, conceal, or transfer the ball pending the court's ruling. Mattis's initial filing requested a court order declaring that he is entitled to the ball and requests a jury trial on his claims. It is also alleged unlawful battery against Belansky. Kelvin Ramirez, also named in the lawsuit after claiming ownership of the ball. Ramirez attended the game with Belansky. Golden Auctions, Belansky, and Ramirez are named in the lawsuit filed by John Ustal, the attorney representing Mattis. Ohtani's home run against the Miami Marlins gave him 50 homers and 50 stolen bases in the same season, making him the first member of the 50-50 club. The opening bid for the ball was $500,000. There is a black scuffing and abrasions on the white leather ball, which was authenticated by Major League Baseball. Ohtani is one of a kind, and the 50-50 record may be his crowning achievement, said Ken Golden, founder and CEO of the auction house. This is a piece of baseball history that fans and historians around the world will remember for decades to come. It's real simple. You have the video of who caught the ball. Once they play that video in court, it's a no-brainer, because if I caught the ball, how does it go from my hands to your hands? Unless you steal it from me or I give it to you. We're literally looking probably at a $2-3 million baseball. That's a lot of money. And if this kid, this 18-year-old, really did catch the ball and had it stolen from him, well, I hope he's able to get it back. Here's a weird story. A man is experiencing a bit of an existential crisis after discovering his real birthday 25 years later. We'll never forget the day we were born, right? Well, we celebrate the occasion every year with our nearest and dearest, with the big birthdays typically extra special. Whether it be a boozy birthday in Vegas on the 21st or that extra special 50th birthday party, which I did not have because I didn't want one. Yeah, birthdays, parties happen. But let's talk about Adrian Peru here, content creator on the likes of TikTok and YouTube, who literally took to the former to reveal he's been celebrating his birthday on the wrong day for the last 25 years. He says, so after 25 years, I just realized this is not my real date of birth. Apparently, I was born July 7th and not April 4th. My birthday was last week. Content creator explained how he had a call from his car insurance provider to say his premiums were going down because he had just turned 25. I told them, shouldn't you guys have charged me less than 4 months ago on my birthday? And they're like, no. Now, in my opinion of this, if I could say so myself, because people have been asking, what have your parents been telling you? You telling me you never noticed this? It's on your driver's license. If you have state or provincial ID, it's on there too. If you have a passport, guess what? It's on there. How do you mess up your birthday? That doesn't make sense at all. Honestly, this story pisses me off because you know this guy, the minute in the story they put that it was he's a TikToker, a YouTuber, a content creator, you know he's doing it for clicks. You cannot be that stupid, pardon my language, to think that your birthday is 3 months previous and you've been celebrating it 3 months previous for the last quarter century. I bugged my daughter about her birthday. She's still correct on hers. Anyways, we got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot rocking in the background with little brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Hellcat, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X, Spaced Out Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right. Close that off. Close that off. And go here. Go here. And we will download this. All right. Plant watering citizen. Sure. Thank you, Paul Scott. That was fun. Once again, I apologize about the video. We have a storm happening outside, a really bad windstorm. I'm surprised we actually made it through the night. I really am. And so, Justin, yeah, sorry about that. I'm hoping that by tomorrow we can get the signal back up running again. That way you can see my nice double chin that I got going on right now. I am going to be investing in a new camera very soon. I'm tired of this one. I think it's starting to wear out. But yeah, nonetheless, windstorm's supposed to calm down here overnight, and we'll kind of go from there. On that note, thank you tonight to Richard, Mel WD40, T-Bone, Joe, CS, and Marty for the super chats. Tomorrow night on the show, Dr. Elliot Heimoff is talking space pioneers. We're going to have some fun with him tomorrow night as well. So thank you very much, everybody. We're going to have a great time. I hope we see you all tomorrow. Hopefully this weather improves our camera system, and have a good night, everyone.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.